I forgot.
All right. Yeah, usually start it.
Hello, everybody. We're trying to remember who usually says hello first. And I think it's me, and today it's me anyway. So, hello. We are back after our July break while we got our new podcast organized. But of course, we're not changing this particular session because this is one of the most popular sessions on our podcast, our monthly AskALLi member Q&A, where members of the Alliance of Independent Authors send in their questions for public discussion between myself and Michael, and indeed anybody else who happens to be here for this Facebook Live session is welcome to hop in with questions or comments on the issues that are arising, or indeed if you have something yourself and we have time, we will cover that for you today. How are you, Michael?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to be back.
It's great to be back, actually. Yes. I missed you.
Yeah, I missed you too. It's kind of weird because it's part of my monthly routine, and I went the whole summer without doing the podcast. So it's awesome to be back.
It's great.
How are you doing?
I think I don't think we'll need to do it again, but we were just making so many changes to the podcast, so many new speakers, presenters, I should say, new topics that we just needed to do all that kind of work in the background. So we will be running now week on week, and great to see some people here to hear the questions. So you are the man who holds the list of questions. What's our first one today?
All right, so we have a question extravaganza. So huge thank you to everyone who submitted your questions while we were on break. We're going to get to as many of them as we can today, but just know that your question will not be forgotten. All right, so the first question is from Christina, and she writes, I am told no one makes... Oh, actually, sorry. Minor tech issue.
That's okay.
Let's see here.
Can't wait to hear the end of that sentence. I'm told no one makes any money writing. No one makes a book.
Well, the funny part was we actually answered that in April. So
okay. That's true.
My fault. The first question, just kidding, is from Maureen. And she writes, I'm currently publishing a children's book and would like to know what questions to ask a potential illustrator and some things that I might need to know. So essentially, what questions should I be thinking about asking a potential illustrator?
Yeah, really important question, because we're here now in the land of rights and income from work and so on. So in trade publishing, the general rule of thing is that an illustrator gets paid for the job, and then the copyright is, the licensed rights in those illustrations. Essentially, the publisher can do as they need to do within reason and so on with the illustration. So if they need to use them in PR, publicity, or anything like that, that's kind of covered off by the one-off payment that an illustrator gets. In indie publishing, loads of people have followed the same model, but there are authors who are kind of saying, well, you're a creative, I'm a creative, we're in this together. And if in something like a children's book where the illustrations and the words are so intertwined and it's almost a creative whole to put the two together, sometimes they're splitting the rights and the income, and both are taking the risk maybe of putting in the time and effort at the beginning, and there is no direct payment. So the whole issue of payment is one thing, in other words, that you need to think about clearly. What do you want in terms of how you're going to pay the illustrator for their work and what you want going forward, because it can really make a difference, especially if the book does well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's such a thoughtful question, because really you also want to make sure that this artist is going to be someone who's going to follow through with what they say they're going to do, right? Because that's another common issue, is you come up with illustrators and, life gets busy for them, or it's not their full-time gig, and they just fall off the face of the earth. Something you might consider doing is actually having an interview with your potential illustrators and actually just talk to them and figure out if you've got that social chemistry. I think it's so easy in today's age to just do it all over the internet, but maybe having an interview process could actually help you in this regard, because then that will help you get a sense of, is this person actually going to carry through what they say they're going to do?
I couldn't agree more. I think you need to choose an illustrator like you choose an editor very carefully, and there may be a bit of sort of trial and error. You should certainly ask for samples. That's a number one thing, and it's very common. And if your illustrator is not willing to do that without payment, then I think that's, you know, a measure of something as well. And you should think about not just this project, but ongoing projects. Perhaps this is somebody that you might, you know, you may be planning a series and you know, more than this book at stake. So we are currently doing up a lot of agreements between authors and various freelancers and services that they would use, sort of ideal agreements, which within which the different clauses in the agreement really tease out all the different things that you need to be talking about and thinking about. Because to be honest, this question would take up this whole show, and we still wouldn't cover everything that could come up. So the agreement between the author and the illustrator, if it's not there already, it's coming very, very soon. So do log into the member zone and find all sorts of new goodies there, because we've had our website revamp, and lots more coming over the summer. So the summer here in the UK. So yeah, there are lots of different things to think about, but hopefully we've given you a few to kind of be going on with, and then check out the member zone for the author illustrator agreement, and that should guide you on the rest.
All right. Our next question is from Hans, and he says that I am looking for an experienced designer to remake my existing Dutch book for the American/English market. So the question is, where can I find a cover designer to design a cover for a specific target market?
Okay, well, a good place to start is the AskALLi directory, the services directory. So there are lots of formatters and designers in the directory, and it will be a matter of having to ask them with such a specific requirement. I'm not sure what the, you know, what is the design difference because you think the market needs a different sort of design, or is it because it's just in a different language and the person you've worked with already is not available to you, Hans? I'm not sure which it is. But the directory is a really good place to start, allianceindependentauthors.org/directory. And then you're going to have to actually reach out and contact people that you like the look and sound of. So in the directory, you get the website addresses, and so go on to the website address, take a look at some of the work that's there. There should be samples on the site. If not, write off and get some samples. In other words, these things take time, both this question and the previous question. I think one of the things that happens here is we want to shortcut the process. And in actual fact, hiring a designer, hiring an illustrator, hiring an editor is not something that happens at the drop of a hat. It's the more time and effort you put in upfront, the more time and effort you are going to save yourself in the long run. If you just go with, unless you're supremely lucky, but we don't kind of plan for that in AskALLi, we plan for just, you know, what tends to happen. Unless you're supremely lucky, if you don't put time, effort, energy, research, and gut feeling, and, you know, just sit with it, take your time, usually you kind of lose a day afterwards. And also we see now a lot of services reaching out to indie authors, particularly those who've had a bit of success. And when you are approached in that way by a service, a designer, or anybody else, take the same amount of time, even more probably, time and attention to make sure that you are very, very comfortable. If you feel any sort of hesitation, move on, keep on researching till you get the right person.
Oh, I love that you brought that up. That's such a great point. You know, it sometimes when you're not familiar with a process, or things don't feel like they're going your way, it's easy to get down, right? And that's when the bad guys come, you know, and they prey on that. So yeah, absolutely. I echo everything Orna said. And with the cover design too, you know, I question a little bit why you would want to do a separate cover for the US market, but you know, everybody has their reasons, and I think that makes sense. And finding that designer, I would definitely start with the AskALLi partner directory.
Right.
All right. Next question is from Roberta, and she asks, how do I go about getting an editor to read my book? It is a fantasy type children's book.
Now, when I saw this question, I wasn't sure, is this somebody who's seeking, when they say editor, do they mean a trade publishing editor?
I believe so.
Okay, in that case, it's not really a question for us. I mean, but essentially the answer is pitch, 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 just keep sending it off. But we would say, don't pitch, 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 pitch. Stay right where you are and get your own editor and publish your book yourself. But I mean, there really is no shortcutting that process either of finding a trade publisher, which, by the way, is getting harder and harder if you haven't already got some sort of record in self-publishing. Now it's kind of going against you in trade publishing. They want to see that you have the basics of knowing how to build a platform, how to put a book together, that you understand, you know, there was a time that if you self-published a book, it was actually a no-no to trade publishing. Now it's really going in the other direction. Of course, there are exceptions to this, as there were exceptions before as well. But as a general trend, trade publishers now like to see that you have the initiative, and certainly that you have a platform, a website, and some followers, and some, you know, that you're able to find your way around social media and all of that. Getting a trade publisher doesn't stop any of that. So, and yeah, do try self-publishing. Every author should try it at least once, just to see what it's all about.
Agree, and then you'll never go back. All right. So next question is from Kathy. So Kathy, it was having some issues with her publisher. So I'll summarize kind of what she wrote into us. But essentially, she had a publishing contract with a smaller publisher, and everything was going great when they first started. But then slowly they stopped responding to her emails, and she wanted to just order some author's copies so that she could do a author's reading, but it turns out they vanished and they appear to have gone out of business. So what should I do if my publisher goes out of business is the question.
Yeah, well, it's a minefield, you know, and there is no, again, we've been to a lot of questions here today already that there are no easy answers to, but certainly there's no easy answers here. So find out, first of all, as much as you possibly can. Go on to the author and Facebook groups and so on and find out there. If you're affected, it's likely that there are other authors out there. So Google it, you know, see what the story is as much as you can. The chances of you getting any money back, any money that's due to you if you haven't been paid already, are slim. And even if you have been getting your royalties up to a certain point and they are now gone, you will be on a long list of people to whom the company owes money, and you won't be at the top of that list. So it's unlikely that any royalties that you are due are going to be paid. Your real concern is to get your rights back so that you can then publish yourself and or, you know, whatever else you want to do. You need to get those rights back in your hands. So you need to make contact in some way with somebody. So your publisher went out of business. Okay, fair enough. That's a company, but you knew somebody in there that you actually dealt with, and that's a person. So you need to find a person if you can, and just say to them, look, I am taking my rights back. And here, you know, you need to put that in writing, in an email, send it off to somebody, CCing yourself so you have a copy of it at a minimum. And that's the start. Now, if they decided, it's highly, highly unlikely that they would decide to contest that. I would also take a look at your contract and see what the contract says about the company going out of business. I know it's awful that this happened to you, and I'm sure has been very distressing, but it is actually less complex than when the company sells itself on to another company, because then you can really run yourself into trouble. So essentially make the claim for your rights to return them to yourself. And then, you know, if this small publisher didn't do a whole lot for you, and it doesn't sound like they did, and then they're gone out of business, you know, this is a real warning to other people. So I'm really glad that you sent us this question, because a lot of people are signing up with, inverted commas, publishers who are not really able to do any more for you than you're able to do for yourself. and then they're gone, and all the work you've done with them has gone down the drain. If you had done it yourself at that point, you would be still able to build step by step on what you're doing. So I know that there are reasons to take a trade publishing contract. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying nobody ever should at all, but I am saying do think carefully before you give your rights to somebody else, because we're seeing this happen all the time. I mean, every single week now we're getting, and Michael, you were writing in, you're also getting loads of questions all the time. And this is just becoming super common because people think, oh, there's loads of money to be made in publishing authors now. And they're jumping in, they don't know what they're doing. And, very often you know more, and trust your own ability to do things for yourself. Unless a company can make it very clear to you what they're bringing to the table around the marketing end of things, you're going to end up having to do all of that anyway. The production end of things really gets very simple after a little while particularly ebooks, once you've been self-publishing for a while. So think long, think hard before you give your rights away.
Oh, absolutely. And a couple things that I would add to that is sometimes doing things via post or postal mail sometimes can get you a response. So at least here in the States, certified mail would ensure that you could get a receipt when someone got your piece of mail if you're having trouble getting in touch with someone. But I think the big thing to think about, and it's probably not of much help to Kathy asking the question, but for everyone else listening, is that if you can't get an easy rights reversion clause in your publishing contract, that would probably be a deal breaker for me, right? Because, if you really are thinking about this, I would think very long and hard about what the rights of reversions clause looks like. Because if you read this and it looks like it's going to be complicated, well, chances are it's probably going to be complicated. Now, that's not to say that you can get one that possible to get those rights back. That will make it a lot easier because to Orna's point, it's something that we're seeing very, very common right now. And it just breaks my heart when I hear people talk about not being able to get their rights back or the publisher going out of business. So definitely be careful.
Brilliant point on the reversion clause. Most important clause in the contract. More important than the money, more important than the royalties is the reversion. Those rights are very valuable, and as authors generally we give them away too easily.
Very true. All right. Our next question is from Stephen. And Stephen asks, can anyone recommend an editor who is up to date with historical fiction? So he's looking for someone who can edit a novel set in France and Germany between 1935 and 1942. So the broader question is, how do you find an editor who specializes in your genre?
Yeah, very good. So again, as an AskALLi member, you're kind of ahead of the posse here, because we have the searchable database of our editors and other services, and you can search under a genre. So you can specifically look for people who specialize in that. So again, your starting point would be the AskALLi directory, which you can download as a member for free in the member zone. So start there, but also talk to other historical fiction authors, and particularly those who are writing in your time period. It's good for you to know these people anyway, because knowing people who write in your genre has all sorts of benefits in all sorts of ways, not just at the communication level, but you can do cross promotions together. You can, and by observing what they're doing, you can learn a lot and so on. So you kind of should be in touch with other people who are writing what you are, and then you can talk to them about, who their editor is, who's good and who's bad, and have those kinds of conversations. So I think those two things are probably your best source. What do you think, Michael?
Oh, I agree completely. So our next question is from Beatrice, and Beatrice unfortunately found copies of her book available on a pirate site. So what do you do if someone is pirating your book?
Yes. Now, this is something that we're kind of working on at the moment. This is so common. So first of all, there are a wide variety of indie opinions around this, and I'm going to sort of look at the two ends of the spectrum. There are indie authors who spend a lot of time chasing this down and are kind of furious about it, and are constantly sending DMCA notices. I'll explain what that means in a minute. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there are those people who say, I don't care, I haven't got time or energy to chase this. And anyway, there is some evidence that says being pirated is actually good for your book, because the problem that most authors face these days is discoverability, anybody knowing that you're there, because we're working in the sort of world of abundance where, while we've been talking, more books have been published and more books coming out all the time. That the real challenge for an author these days is obscurity more than anything else, and piracy can actually elevate you a little bit. Now, wherever you fall on that spectrum, and I'm not going to tell you what to think about it, we feel that the Alliance needs to kind of address this issue at some level. So first thing to say is that because you have seen your book, in inverted commas, on a site, it doesn't actually necessarily mean that the book has been pirated. There are a lot of what's called phishing sites, which use books as bait to get clicks. So it might be a phishing site. Don't click. Then in the situation where there are infringements, there are pirates, we're currently looking at an arrangement with the UK Publishers Association. They have an infringement portal whereby they send out notices to infringers of copyright requesting takedown. So the DMCA ruling in the US has kind of been taken by the rest of the world as well as the standard. And this is, if you just Google it, you read all about it, and it just is essentially a takedown notice that is sent to pirate sites requesting takedown. Some comply, some do not comply, and it appears elsewhere. So you could actually spend your whole week just chasing this around the place. It's whack-a-mole. As soon as you get rid of one, another one pops up. Yep. So it is really quite a serious issue, but we're doing what we can to address it. So I'm sure you have stuff to add, Michael.
Yeah, it's just not worth your time. That's my opinion. You like Orna said, it's a game of whack-a-mole. A lot of times it's bad guys trying to fish people to get their credit card information. It's just not, your time is better spent writing. Your time is better spent marketing. And chances are the people that pirate your book, or the people that download your book on a torrent site, or if they have to go through all that work to get your book, were they probably going to buy it anyway? Probably not, and I just, like I said, I think copyright infringement's a big deal, and I think there is something we should do about it collectively as a community. But I think that the best way to ensure that you're going to get the most readers as possible is to, one, make sure your book is available, because if your book is not available, then people will pirate it. And two, make sure that it's available to as many people as possible. Three, make sure you have the right price. Right. I mean, I almost bought a book the other day, and I came on the Amazon page, and it was like $17 for like a 200-page book. I'm not going to buy that. That increases the chance that someone's probably going to pirate it. So as long as you've got those three sweet spots together, I think you've really done all you can, and your time is just better spent doing other things that are going to make you money.
Yeah. And one thing I would add to that, all brilliant advice, I think. Though we collectively, as Michael said, I think we also have a responsibility to face the fact that it's there and to do what we can about it. At the moment, there isn't a huge amount we can do about it. Being completely honest, it can help those initiatives that we're going to take in certain quarters. It will be helpful in other quarters. The worst actors, if you like, it won't help at all, because they're not people who are going to comply with a notice to take down. By definition, legalities don't mean a whole lot to them, so you're just going to ignore it. DRM comes in here as well. I think it's worth mentioning.
Very true.
And adding in, following in on what Michael has just said, the other thing to do is, as you go through and you're publishing your book, you will be given the option to put digital rights management on the title or not. Choose not, because to Michael's point, it makes the book available. DRM limits the book to that particular platform. And so if that platform is gone, then your book is gone with them. So leave it open, and also it restricts the reader in terms of how, you know, their access to the book, and they can get fed up. You know, they can go, well, I can't get at this book, you know, and that can lead them onto a pirate site to get it for nothing. So make it as easy as possible for the reader. Don't take digital rights management. You might think you're protecting your book by choosing DRM. But actually, any hacker who wants to get beyond DRM will find it very, very easy to do that. And it really doesn't protect your book. It just really irritates the reader.
Yep. And then another thing to think about, people think that it's just somebody that downloads a book and then is spending their time uploading it to all these different piracy sites. It's probably an AI. It's probably a bot that's just crawling Amazon, getting the data for your book, and then trying to make it appear that it's available. So if you think about it. And Margaret is considering purchasing a grammar spell checker app such as Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid, and she would like to know which of these apps might be the best. And I guess the first question is, are spell checking apps like Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid worth it? And are there any that AskALLi in particular would recommend?
I would say that they are worth it. That no matter how kind of good you think you are on the grammar and spelling front, you're probably not as good as you think you are. And if you're in doubt at all, that they really are very useful. And our preference is Pro Writing Aid, who is a partner member. And the reason being, Grammarly is it's not that it's not good software, it is good software. But Pro Writing Aid is geared for writers. So it's just, you know, it's just got those extra bells and whistles and just thinks like we do as well. And I would argue possibly doesn't introduce, Grammarly can be very, very pedantic in a way that introduces errors sometimes.
Yeah.
So with any software, that's going to happen to some degree. But I would think Pro Writing Aid has the edge on that as well. So that's the one that we recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. And shameless self-plug here. So I actually did a YouTube video on this. I did a Grammarly versus Pro Writing Aid app battle. And so I basically compared both apps feature by feature. And I came to that same conclusion. And you can find that on my YouTube channel. It's at authorlevelup.com. And or you can go to YouTube and search for Author Level Up. And then it's one of the most popular videos on my channel of all time. And I think it's helped a lot of people. So if you're on the fence about it, or if you want some more justification of why Pro Writing Aid is probably a better fit for you, I would definitely look at that video.
That's fantastic. And there you go. We came to that conclusion separately. We had discussed that before. So I think that's a ringing endorsement of Pro Writing Aid there. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So we have another question from Terry, and it is the question that always keeps coming back. So it is on ISBNs. So Terry asks, do I need separate ISBNs for paperbacks when I want to publish on Ingram Spark and Amazon?
Our recommendation is no. What you separate your ISBNs out around is format, not platform. So, you know, if another print-on-demand company was to pop up tomorrow, would you get another one and then another one and so on? No. So what you do is your ISBN relates to ebook, print book, and the different formats in print. So if you go the whole hog in Ingram Spark, you can have hardback, large print, softback, and so each of those will require a separate ISBN. Your audiobook will also require a separate one. So the ISBN is linked to the format. If you just think about what an ISBN is for, I think it makes it clear what you should do. So essentially, the ISBN is that particular book's identifier to the marketplace, say librarians or booksellers, people like that, who want to purchase a book that will please their customers or clients, and they want to know, am I getting a softback? Am I getting a hardback? Am I getting an audiobook? Am I getting they don't care who distributed the book as long as they can get it themselves and it's available to them. What they care about is, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What am I actually getting? And So that's what we recommend you set up around. And similarly, you don't need a different one for your Mobi and your EPUB. Any form of ebook, we would argue, is an ebook, and leave it at that.
Yeah, and ISBNs are expensive, at least in the States. So save your money wherever you can. So, all right. So our next question.
Michael hates buying those ISBNs.
Oh no, they're expensive. You can buy a computer for the cost of
they add
ISBNs.
Up. That's the thing. Once you write a lot of books, it really does add up. But it is important not to have, and we have had authors who have just put the same ISBN on every format of one title, and that is just a nightmare for everybody. There's almost no point in having it if you do that.
Yeah, agree. All right, so our next question actually segued into that perfectly. It was, do I need an ISBN for each separate edition of my book? And the answer was a resounding yes. So thank you, Catherine, for that question. That was our next question. But then we have another ISBN question, and that is, where is the best place to buy an ISBN in the UK? That's from our listener, Ben.
Great. Well, it's not a choice, in most places. There is a sort of an ISBN in most territories. There's an ISBN provider. So, for example, in Canada, it's an agency and it's free. In France, it's also free through the National Library. In the UK, it's Nielsen. In the US, it's Bowker. That's where you got to go. You don't say, oh, well, shop around for cheaper ISBNs because they've been given the gig and they ain't giving it away. So, and the short answer is Nielsen.
All right. We have some comments. So Bonnie Wagner Stafford, hi, Bonnie, says ISBNs are free in Canada. Smiley face. Yeah. Oh, Canadians just rub it in. All right. And Rebecca Wood says, very useful. Thank you. I'm going to go watch Dan Holloway's live edit. So, all right. Oh, yeah. Definitely support Dan. And then Kristen Julius says, always such worthwhile information shared here. Thank you very much.
That's great. Happy to be of service. So, yeah, that's us all wrapped up for another month. If you have a question about ISBNs or any other aspect of self-publishing, from marketing, rights, production, reaching more readers, anything at all, and you can just send it through to us. You'll find the form on the AskALLi website in the member zone again, and we will do our very best to get to the question. And if we can't answer it publicly, we will answer it privately. So I think that's it from us this time, Michael.
Yes. So thank you all for listening, and we really appreciate it. And we'll see you next month.
See you next time. Happy writing and publishing.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.